You'd never expect it by looking at them, but some of America's most unlikely criminal networks are hiding in plain sight inside retirement neighborhoods. While the world assumes these seniors spend their days playing cards and complaining about the weather, a surprising number have been quietly running drug routes, forming alliances, and moving serious product across state lines. Cops call them invisible, criminals call them useful, and their neighbors, they never see it coming. Because behind those peaceful smiles are stories of empire building, cartel connections, and elderly outlaws who stopped fearing consequences long ago. Now, while most people picture retirement communities as quiet places full of bingo nights and slow strolls, there's been a whole different kind of energy brewing behind those gated entrances. Real talk. Some of these older guys have been running around like they're in a senior citizen version of the streets. They call themselves drillers, and they move with the kind of confidence that speaks volume. If there's a problem, if the beef is up, they'll step right to it, even in broad daylight, walker and all. These men spend their afternoons drinking and stumbling through heavy prescriptions, and somehow they still keep blowers on them. When things jump off, it turns into full-on wartime. Bloodshed, crews forming, old heads out here moving reckless, like they got nothing left to lose. And when they're not allegedly catching bodies, they're pulling together little schemes and deals at the community hangout spot like it's the senior version of the corner store. Now fast forward to October 21st, 2011. Michigan's I-94 looked like a whole sting operation straight out of a crime show. Dozens of unmarked cars stretched across 70 miles, engines quiet, agents sitting and waiting. All that manpower for one man, and not some fresh-faced street runner either. They were watching Leo Sharp, the Sinaloa cartel's golden courier, the same Sinaloa cartel connected to El Chapo. Sharp wasn't moving little dime bag energy. Every month he was hauling between 450 and 550 pounds of cocaine into Michigan. Just sit with that. The amount of money he pushed back to the cartel cleared over $2 million a month. In the drug world, Sharp wasn't just respected, he was a myth. They even called him Tata, grandfather, and it fit because the man was 87 years old. Before all of this, Sharp's life looked nothing like the streets. Born in Indiana in 1924, he was a decorated World War II hero with a Bronze Star. After the war, he didn't chase chaos, he chased beauty. He became one of the world's top horticulturists, a master at creating new daylilies. More than 180 varieties carried his name. One even got immortalized in his honor, a purple-pink bloom called the Siloam Leo Sharp. His work was so respected, he was invited to plant his flowers in the White House Rose Garden during the George H.W. Bush years. But as the 2000s rolled in, the flower game shifted online. Catalogs weren't cutting it anymore, and Sharp was too old to learn the computer hustle. His business crashed. The farm he loved was slipping through his fingers, and his doctor predicting he'd live to 100 didn't help, because that meant he'd have to watch everything fall apart while still being alive to feel it. So when a seasonal worker quietly offered him a different path, a drive to Arizona, a truckload of packages, and a fat payout, Sharp took it. To him, it felt like survival, and the cartel quickly realized what they had stumbled upon: the perfect courier, no criminal record, legit ID, old man vibes that made cops wave him through. He wasn't suspicious, he was invisible. After one test run, they started trusting him with hundreds of kilos at a time. And unlike every other courier, Sharp got full access. He drove straight into drug houses, he joked with cartel members, he even went on vacation with Viejo, the cartel's Detroit boss. Year after year, he crisscrossed the country like some twisted version of a retiree on a road trip. Chicago, Detroit, Boston, never pulled over once for a full decade. Some years, he made $1 million. In 2010 alone, he moved over a ton of coke, enough to keep more than 7 million people high. Meanwhile, his flower farm was booming. Tour buses full of tourists came to admire his blooms, never realizing they were walking around the backyard of one of the biggest drug mules in America. But when Sharp finally decided he wanted out, the cartel reminded him there was no such thing as retirement in their world. They pressed a gun to his head and let him know exactly what would happen to him and his family if he quit. So he kept driving. At 87 years old, he was still on the road, still moving weight. His downfall came thanks to a determined DEA agent named Jeff Moore. The break started small, a low-level bust with just 2 kilos, but Moore applied pressure and the suspect folded, pointing him toward Ramon Ramos, one of the Sinaloa cartel's key bookkeepers. Ramos cracked almost immediately and started giving the DEA everything: the money drops, the players, the roots. Moore thought he was witnessing something massive, but Ramos laughed it off. To him, these multi-million-dollar drops were just another Tuesday. And then Ramos mentioned their strongest asset, their secret weapon, the courier who brought in $2 million a month by himself, Tata, the grandfather. And that's when the DEA realized the old man cruising down the highway at grandma's speed wasn't harmless at all. He was one of the most effective drug mules the Sinaloa cartel ever had. On September 17, 2011, the whole operation finally snapped into focus. Ramos strapped on a hidden camera, and that footage gave DEA agent Jeff Moore his first real look at the man everyone whispered about in cartel circles: Tata, the legendary courier, the unstoppable mule, the 87-year-old grandfather named Leo Sharp. Moore had heard the age, but hearing and seeing were two different things. When he finally laid eyes on Sharp, it hit him. This frail old man didn't look like a criminal mastermind. He looked like somebody's confused granddad who wandered out looking for the grocery store. And it wasn't just the looks. Sharp was slipping mentally too. Dementia had already started creeping in. The DEA, listening on wiretaps, even heard cartel boss Viejo clowning about it. Sharp would call him back minutes after a conversation like, "Yo, what did we just talk about?" On one of his runs, Sharp got so lost in Detroit that they had to send somebody out just to lead him through the streets like an elderly Uber escort, and the cartel kept complaining he was getting crankier with age. But here's the wild part. Forgetful or not, sensitive or not, Sharp was still a whole pipeline of cocaine flooding into Michigan. The man was basically a one-man cartel highway. So from law enforcement's perspective, his age didn't soften the reality. He was a major player and he needed to be stopped. Then came October 21st, 2011, the big day. Police set up a routine-looking traffic stop to finally reel him in. Sharp stepped out before the officer even finished approaching, wobbling a bit, demanding answers like an impatient elder. At 87, he said, he deserved to know why he was being stopped. He looked genuinely confused, cupping his ear to hear, rambling when asked for paperwork, fumbling for his wallet like he didn't know where anything was. But his confusion didn't change what was sitting in the back of his truck. A drug dog hit on the vehicle, and when they opened it, there it was, 5 duffel bags stuffed with 104 kilograms of cocaine, 229 pounds, enough to make a cartel smile and an entire state numb. The moment those bags unzipped, Sharp just folded. He muttered that they should kill him, let him leave the planet. When attorney Ray Richards met him soon after, Sharp was actually smiling. He said he had lived his whole life clean and had now gone afoul of the loss, almost like he was amused by it. He confessed to the charges: conspiracy, possession, intent to distribute, but he refused to give up anybody else, not one name. According to his lawyer, he was old school. He took his hit, stood on his own, and wasn't dragging anybody down with him. His defense leaned hard on the dementia angle. They tried to paint him as a fragile senior, forced into cartel work at gunpoint. And yes, some of it was true. By the time he got caught, Sharp was clearly slipping. In court, he'd show random family pictures to officers. He leaned in to hear questions. He asked judges to repeat themselves. He was visibly fading, but the prosecution had their own receipts. photos of Sharp and Viejo chilling in Hawaii together, evidence of 10 years of drug runs, proof he wasn't dragged into this life, he walked into it willingly. Despite everything, Sharp begged the judge to spare him prison, and he offered the strangest apology package anyone had heard. He said he could make it up to the country by growing Hawaiian papayas for Americans. The judge wasn't impressed. She sentenced him to 3 years in federal prison. For a 90-year-old man, that hit like a death sentence. His attorney tried one last push, calling him a war hero, one of the greatest generation, a man who fought Nazis. But prosecutors shut that down instantly, insisting that age and medals didn't erase a decade of trafficking. The judge agreed. Sharp barely showed remorse. When the sentence came down, he simply said he was heartbroken, but it was done. And when speaking to reporters, he defended himself with the logic only he could understand. He said all of God's plants, cocaine included, were meant to make people feel better. In his mind, delivering coke was no different than shipping daylilies. Both made people happy. What actually scared him wasn't the lives he damaged, it was prison. He even told ABC that he'd rather shoot himself than live behind bars. Thankfully, he never acted on that threat. Sharp went to prison, but he didn't stay long. His health collapsed quickly, and he was released after about a year. A few months later, in December 2016, Leo Sharp died at 92. Turns out, the world of plugs doesn't always look like the movies. Some of these veterans have been in the game for decades, quietly moving serious weight while blending into everyday life. Take Lily Smith, for example. Back in 2013, nobody would have guessed she was a major player. She was 84 years old, moved around with an oxygen tank, and looked more like someone's sweet grandmother than a trafficker. But that year, she was hit with some heavy charges: trafficking, possession, tampering with evidence, and conspiracy. Those charges stemmed from an old warrant served on her apartment in 2011. Deputies suspected her son, Nathan Jones, was running a small-time operation out of her home. Her neighbors were stunned. They swore Lily was the kindest woman on the block. Some even said she allowed her son to deal from her house just so she wouldn't be left alone and uncared for. It was messy, complicated, and very human. But the sheriff's office remembered that day differently. They reported finding cocaine and marijuana on Lily herself. And not only that, she actually tried to hide the drugs right in front of investigators. Bernalillo County Sergeant Aaron Williamson said it best: "It wasn't something you see every day." During the search, deputies uncovered everything that screams trafficking: cash, scales, narcotics, the works. Nathan had been arrested back in 2011, but Lily wasn't charged at the time due to medical issues. Eventually, the DA pushed forward, and the grand jury indicted her in 2013. She was arrested that April but bonded out. And here's the kicker: this wasn't her first time in the game. Court records showed she had already pleaded guilty to trafficking back in the 1990s when she was in her 60s. But Lily wasn't the only elder still active in the underground economy. That same year, an 80-year-old man named Marshall Herbert Dion was pulled over for speeding in Kansas. A routine traffic stop turned into something huge when officers found nearly $850,000 in cash inside his car. That moment kicked off a massive federal investigation that uncovered nearly 400 pounds of marijuana, another $880,000 hidden in an Arizona building, $11 million tucked away in Massachusetts, and $2 million sitting safely in the bank. Prosecutors claimed Dion's travel logs showed he had moved anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 kilograms of weed since the early 90s. And this wasn't his first slip-up. Back in the 1980s, he was nailed with 180 pounds of marijuana in his car and another 101 pounds in a storage unit. In 1985, he even survived a plane crash where $112,000 in cash was found flying around the wreckage, though he denied any of it was his. In the 2013 case, He didn't fight most of the accusations, but he did insist on two things. He wasn't speeding, and he never consented to a search. Then there was Pearl Jones from Tennessee. In 2013, investigators found hydrocodone pills inside her Kingsport home and suspected she was selling right out of her living room. Another man in the home, Timothy Farley, was also arrested after police found drug paraphernalia tucked under the couch cushion he was sitting on, and the stories just kept getting wilder. In South Carolina, 87-year-old Edward Jr. Williams got caught up in an undercover investigation into prescription drug dealing. Suddenly, this elderly man was facing 3 counts of trafficking opium or heroin, possession with intent to sell, selling a controlled substance, and even using his own vehicle to move the product. But then came a moment that stopped investigators in their tracks. In December 2015, things took a wild turn in Canada when a 62-year-old grandmother found herself in handcuffs for one of the boldest smuggling attempts imaginable. Her name was Linda Ethel Sheridan, and she was caught trying to sneak drugs into jail for her son. The shocking part wasn't just the attempt, it was how she tried to do it. Officers said she hid the stash inside her own body. In court, prosecutors laid out the details: nearly 6 grams of meth, a little over 3 grams of heroin, and 2 vials of cannabis resin, all tucked away. And if that weren't enough, she had 12 hydrocodone pills, cigarettes, and nicotine patches hidden in her bra. Sheridan claimed she wasn't acting on her own. Her defense was that some gangsters forced her into the whole plan. But either way, the arrest left everyone speechless. A few months later, in March 2016, another case surfaced, this time out of Foley. A 78-year-old man named Jimmy Dale Hankins was taken down after a long undercover investigation by the Baldwin County Drug Task Force. According to officers, Hankins had a strange routine. He would hang around the local Walmart parking lot at night looking for customers. Once he found a buyer, he'd take them back to his house to seal the deal. An undercover officer bought from him several times, but the big takedown came when Hankins sold 100 morphine pills for $11 each. Authorities still had no idea where he was getting his supply. They said he mainly sold to men in their 20s and 30s, and they were also looking into disturbing allegations about other criminal activity happening inside his home. The deeper investigators looked, the more troubling details they found. Past cases involving overdoses, assault reports, and men who claimed they woke up in Hankins' home partially clothed with missing memories. Many never came forward out of embarrassment or fear. Hankins eventually landed in Baldwin County Jail on a trafficking charge. Fast forward to March 2019 in Georgia, where a 6-month undercover operation finally came to an end at a house on Golf Course Road. Officers seized 8 ounces of meth and arrested 78-year-old Jasper Jerry Carlin. When they confronted him, he casually admitted he had been selling meth for 20 years without ever getting caught. Along with Carlin, police arrested 2 others, Robin Early May, who was suspected of helping him distribute, and Keith Lamar Pitts, a customer who happened to walk into the bus carrying a gram of meth. All 3 were taken to the Habersham County Jail, facing charges ranging from trafficking to possession. Then came July 2022 in North Naples. A 69-year-old man named William Bill Jones was arrested after a long investigation revealed he'd been moving serious amounts of fentanyl and cocaine. Deputies recovered nearly $100,000 in cash, along with hundreds of grams of a cocaine fentanyl mix, oxycodone pills, and more drug paraphernalia. A later search of his home turned up even more: raw marijuana, vape cartridges, THC cigarettes, and additional cocaine. Jones was booked into the Collier County Jail, facing more than a dozen major trafficking charges. But just when it looks like you've seen the wildest side of senior outlaws, the story takes a whole new turn. Now, you might think sliding into some old man's house is easy work, light mission, quick grab and go, but that only applies if the old man in question isn't a battle-tested World War II vet who's been through more chaos than most folks could survive in 10 lifetimes. And that right there is where this whole story flips. Because this ain't just any senior citizen. This is Earl Jones, 92 years old, sharp as a tack, and absolutely fed up with getting played. And honestly, people love to underestimate the elderly. Sure, they move slow, repeat themselves, maybe carry that classic old man smell, but tough, that's baked into their bone. These are people who grew up on ration cards, fought wars, raised families with nothing but grit, and watched the world reinvent itself again and again. So when someone decides to break into their home, yeah, that's the kind of bad decision that gets your obituary written. Jones knew that better than anybody. In 2012, his house was hit twice. First time, thieves made off with 90 head of cattle, 90. Then, a few months later, somebody else cleaned him out for cash, a check, and a TV. By the time that third break-in rolled around, Jones was done being polite about it. He told reporters he was tired of all this damn mess, and he meant it. So picture this, it's 2 a.m. Jones is chilling in his home when he hears something in the basement. No hesitation, no panic. He grabs his .22 rifle, shuffles over to a chair with a clear line of sight, and sits himself down like he's clocking in for work. 20 minutes pass, and he can hear those footsteps creeping closer. That slow climb up the stairs from the basement. Then the door blasts open like somebody's kicking in a saloon entrance. Jones said the intruder hit it so hard it nearly flew off the hinges. But for him, that was perfect timing. As soon as he saw a body in the doorway, he raised his rifle and squeezed off a single shot. His target was simple, the man's heart. The intruder, a man named Maxwell, dropped instantly, tumbling backward down the stairs. Jones didn't run, didn't hide, didn't shake. He just called his neighbor to alert the authorities because he knew the job was done. But the wild part is what happened next. By the time deputies got there, Maxwell's buddies, 2 other men involved in the break-in, had already dragged the body out and driven off. They weren't touched. And Jones, he said if they'd come up those stairs too, he was ready to send them right behind their friend. When police finally arrived, they told the 92-year-old veteran to put his hands up, and he wasn't having it at first. He eventually complied, but he was heated, especially when they took his rifle. He worried those men might circle back looking for revenge, and now he didn't even have the weapon that saved his life. Still, Jones stood on his principles. He wasn't scared, not angry, just ready to defend himself. He said flat out that the intruder was hunting him, and he wasn't about to be anybody's prey. The people who broke into his home meant nothing to him. He compared them to groundhogs tearing up the yard, and he believed the world was full of too many crooked people walking around causing havoc. Meanwhile, a county over, police got a call about a shooting victim found in a Chevrolet Impala. It was Maxwell, dead, sitting with the same 2 men who fled Jones's property. At first, they tried to spin some wild story about an accidental shooting during a fishing trip, but pressure cracked their lie quick, and they admitted everything. They were charged with burglary and tampering with evidence. Jones, on the other hand, wasn't charged at all, thanks to Kentucky's Castle Doctrine. The law says a person can use deadly force to stop crimes like trespassing or burglary inside their home. And with stand your ground expansions, folks don't even have to retreat in public spaces. It's self-defense, simple and plain. But laws aside, Jones didn't care about legal debates or public opinion. Dial 911, wait around for someone to come save him? That was never happening. Not from a military man who lived by one principle. Time is of the essence. In his eyes, hesitation gets you killed. And if one message came out of that basement standoff, Jones wanted it loud and clear. Maybe, just maybe, this would make other would-be thieves think twice about rolling up on the wrong house. Then came July 22nd, 2015. On one side stood Thomas Greer, an 80-year-old man who'd had enough of being terrorized in his own home. On the other side was 28-year-old Andrea Miller, running for her life and begging him to spare it. She yelled out that she was pregnant, that she was carrying a baby, trying anything she could to stop what was coming. But Greer still raised his revolver and put 2 bullets straight into her back. That was the moment everything snapped. Greer later laid out his version of events. He said he came home late that Tuesday night to find a man and a woman already inside, tearing into his safe. The 2 intruders, Miller and her partner, didn't hesitate. According to Greer, they jumped him, slammed him to the ground, and broke his collarbone in the struggle. But when they got distracted, he saw his opening. He jumped up, grabbed his .22 caliber Smith & Wesson, and the second those intruders saw him armed, they took off running. But Greer didn't stay inside. Instead, he chased them out of the house and down a nearby alley. And that right there is where everything veered into dangerous territory. He later told a reporter that when it's time to defend yourself, you better do something. But legally, the danger had already passed. They were out of his home. He wasn't defending anything anymore. He was hunting. Investigators painted their own picture of the break-in. They said Ruby Adams was stationed outside as the lookout while her son Gus and Andrea Miller broke into Greer's house. Greer grabbed his gun from the bedroom and started firing at the pair as they ran from his home office. At some point in the chaos, Miller screamed that she was pregnant. Greer admitted he shot her anyway. She wasn't actually pregnant, but that didn't change what followed. Greer said she couldn't run as fast as the man, so he caught up to her in the alley and shot her twice in the back, and then things got even darker. Greer claimed he dragged Miller's body back toward his garage to lure Gus Adams back inside. When Gus returned, prosecutors said he grabbed Greer's gun and phone before jumping into a getaway car driven by his mother. The charges were heavy. Gus Adams was hit with multiple felonies: murder, firearm theft, possession of a firearm by a felon, robbery, and burglary. Ruby Adams was charged with first-degree burglary and first-degree robbery. But Greer, he doubled down. He insisted everything he did was pure self-defense, and even said he hoped the whole ordeal scared off anyone who might try breaking into his home next. A similar nightmare played out 2 years later for John Croft in Center Point, Alabama. It was 1 a.m, pitch dark and silent, when he woke up to noises coming from his basement. Before he had time to gather himself, the intruders had already broken a window, climbed up to the bedroom level, and stepped into his room. 2 men ordered him not to move. One of them even barked a command with the N-word. But Croft had already reached for his gun. He didn't hesitate. He fired 5 quick shots from his .38. One intruder dropped in his bedroom. The second sprinted off and dove into a getaway car. The sheriff's report later confirmed it all. The 2 men forced entry through the basement window, climbed upstairs, and confronted Croft in his bed. The one Croft shot died on scene. Croft even chased the other man out of the house before realizing he himself had been shot in the ankle. He hadn't felt a thing. When deputies arrived, they found Croft sitting calmly on his porch, house secured. It was clear he had been targeted because of his age. To those intruders, he probably looked like an easy victim, but Croft knew exactly what kind of mindset he was dealing with and matched it with the force required to stay alive. After reviewing everything, authorities ruled that Croft wouldn't face charges. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office explained why. They stressed that when someone breaks into your home at 1 a.m, armed or not, you can assume they mean harm. The law gives you the right to protect your life. A deputy district attorney broke it down even further. If someone is breaking in or already inside, deadly force is legally justified. And deadly force doesn't have to be a gun. It can be whatever you have on hand to survive that moment. Croft had lived in that Center Point home for more than 20 years, but his problems had only begun the year before. He'd been through 13 home invasions in under 12 months. 13. He told reporters he felt like a prisoner in his own house. And even after fighting off this last attack, He carried a lot of complicated feelings. The man he killed was only a teenager. Croft said he had no choice, but that didn't erase the grief. He said he hated that the boy was dead, but he didn't regret defending himself. What tore him up was imagining the boy's mother. He knew nothing hurts a mother like losing a son, and as a black man himself, he understood what the death of a young black boy represents in America. He said it didn't look good for one black man to shoot another, but in that moment, in that bedroom, he believed there was only one way to make it out alive.